Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports. It is your weekend program, Saturday Sports Special, where we get to, meet with or chat with the movers and shakers in sports, the sportsmen, the sportswomen, coaches, administrators, fans, just about everyone who involved in sports some way or the other. We get to talk with them. And this weekend, no exception, because we decided on this weekend we will try to speak to some of our fans or viewers who have been having quite a bit to talk about, expressing their views, etc. And quite a few of them have, what should I say, they have agreed to come onto the program and to speak to us about some of the things that they believe are concerning to them. Some things they probably want to praise, some things that they believe can be done better, all regarding sports. So we'll be chatting about quite a number of things. But one of the burning issues, and for some reason I want you folks who are monitoring and who normally will chime in, to talk about is whether or not, do you believe that Grenadians are really passionate about sports or just about the moment? That's one question I want to ask. Do you believe Grenadians are passionate about sports or they are just about the moment? So it's the week of intercall or the week of or the day of intercall, passionate. It's the week of character games, the day of character games, passionate. The week of a football game or a cricket match at the stadium, and it's the day of the match, and everybody is just hype about it. But then after that, so that's one of the questions, whether or not you believe that Grenadians are Grenadians passionate about sports or just about the moment. And then, I continue to ask myself the question, and what's the difference between someone from, let's say, Jamaica or the Bahamas or Barbados winning let's say a bronze or a silver, let's just use a bronze medal for example, and at the character games. So the question is, what's the difference between someone from one of the other islands winning a bronze medal at the character games and someone from Grenada achieving the same, but yet is unable to get a scholarship? What it is they're doing, the others are doing, that we are not doing. That's another of the questions. I don't know. Folks, quite a bit I've been on the plate for a while, and I really want to hear what you have to say, get some some answers to these questions as to what it is they're doing that probably we are not doing, achieving the same, but somehow, we just not, getting there. So if you believe you know what it is, just let me know. I'm seeing Hazelin is already on. She'll be joining us momentarily. And then I also have Kevin Braffett, who is also will join us in a moment. By the way, a lot of the folks are remote today, right? So in some instances, you'll be hearing their voices because Hazelin is actually en route to a track meet. Rudian is in Toronto, but he's on the road as well. Well, I just got myself into the hotel, so it's all crazy, But and then I expect my friend Quincy Jones to join me in a few moments to discuss about that. But let me see if I can get those folks on and hear what they have to say regarding those things. First of all, let me see if I can get Hazelin on to the program. Hazelin, are you monitoring? Are you hearing me? Yeah. Hazelin, I'm not hearing you. Are you hearing me? Nothing yet from her. Let me see if I can get some volume on her part. Nothing yet from her. So let me see if I can rectify that from Hazelland. Let me see if I can add Kevin, who's also, I think, remotely. Kevin, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear. Are you
Okay.
hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Kevin. Nice having you on the program. And
Thank you.
yeah, let me see if I can get me over on the other side. Right. So, Kevin, thanks for accepting it. And I know you have been monitoring, and quite a bit you have been commenting on regarding the what's happening with sports in Grenada. And I threw out this question there, Kevin, and it had to do, well, two questions. One, whether or not Grenadians are passionate about sports or just about the moment. And then the whole issue of, uh, um, athletes, and by the way, not just track and field athletes, whether they are footballers, they are basketballers, the Grenadians are achieving just about the same, if not in some instances more than, but yet for all we hearing that these athletes, sportsmen, sportswomen from these other islands are still, being able to access scholarships and things like that. Um, is it something that's of concern to you, or you believe you know why that is happening, Kevin?
That's a that's a very good question because I was scrolling Facebook just about 2 days ago, and I was noticing that Saint Vincent and the Grenadines had so many athletes in the diaspora, on various scholarships at various universities, and not just in track and field. And I asked myself, how is it that, St. Vincent with, similar situation to Grenada, how is it that they have so many athletes outside? And I'm seeing other little islands, islands like, and even places like Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Yep.
are we doing something wrong, or is it something that we're not doing actually? And sometimes I liaise with coaches, and what I realize is that sometimes coaches don't even know, how to get athletes out of Grenada.
Wow.
So I think sometimes I think we may be in a situation where people are just a little bit um out of their league with the knowledge on
Mm-hmm.
what it takes to get athletes to the next level. And what we have in Grenada is a lot of athletes staying home, a lot of good potential actually staying right here, and not getting to the next level. And it's something that we need to really work on. We know it's happening and we need it to change. And it's time for us to start getting the knowledge out there of what it takes to get to the next level. And we have another phenomenon. Sometimes when we get them out, we don't get them to the right places, because I can call names, but I'm not going to, do that because we have some of the best talented crop of athletes I've seen in a long time. And we send them to some of the most low rated junior colleges, in terms of the programs, and they're not performing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I wonder who sanctions this? Who decides that, hey, I'm going to send some of the best talent we've seen from Grenada and just send them anywhere, you know? So it's like, what are we doing? You know? So there's a lot in Grenada of track and field that we need to discuss. We need to really, really sit down and really plan because something's not going right. There's a lot not going right. There's some that's going good, but there's a lot that's
Not,
not going right.
not good, right? All right. So let's see if you can make Hazeland. Good afternoon? Are you hearing me? So we have no. So we're not hearing from Hazeland. So Hazeland, yeah, she's remote there, so she's hearing me, but somehow I'm not hearing her. But let me see if I can get Quincy Jones joining us. Quincy, good afternoon, and I'm throwing out the same question to you as I threw out to Kevin a while ago, and Kevin, basically saying that you know it's bothering him as well that somehow there's something that we're not doing And and even speaking with coaches, he is getting that impression that something is wrong. But the question remains: what it is we are doing, or we are not doing, for that matter, to access the sort of programs and like scholarships and other training opportunities that others are. And our sportsmen and sportswomen are achieving similar or even exceeding the performance. But yet, for all, whether it's from Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, even St. Vincent and St. Lucia, and our athletes, in this case, our sportsmen, our young, talented sportsmen and sportswomen, are not given that opportunity. What you believe is probably the problem.
Yeah, I believe the issue. Are you hearing me clearly, right?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Just that I need to
Okay.
see you. We're not seeing your whole face, but yes, I'm hearing you.
All right.
Right. Yeah, you're there.
Right. I think the issue stems from the way our track and field schedule or the system is being set up in Grenada. For example, if we want to use Jamaica as a blueprint, you would see that class two, that is the 15 and 16-year-old, are equivalent to the seniors that we have here in Grenada. Now in Jamaica, they have that option to continue or move further on into class one. So that's the 17, the 18, and the 19-year-old. And of course, within that space of time, they were able to improve their skill sets, get better, run faster, improve their jumps, improve their speed. And over a period of time, the scouts from the US, they are attracted to that. When a class two athlete from Jamaica who is running 10.5, 10.6, 10.7, this is basically the same time our senior athletes run here, right? It is not really that attractive for scouts in the US that would want to recruit Grenadian athletes. So hence the reason why that discussion on should we include TAM-CC, because that is really where the issue stems from, is that continuation component. After you would finish your secondary school, what else can you do to be engaged within the sport, right? And unfortunately, we don't really have that a proper avenue in place to ensure that. And that is one of the biggest deficiencies that we have within the sport. And I think that is where our problem lies. And I think once we're able to address that, probably in the next 4 or 5 years, you'll see such a drastic change in our athletes' performance. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So any other folks, Hazel, you, yeah, Hazel? Yeah, she's saying that she's hearing me, but somehow I'm not hearing her. But um, if when I'll have your mic open, Hazel. So once you get it organized, you let me know. Kevin, going back to you now, though. That and Quincy is making the point. I know there are a lot of people who may have different views regarding that CC issue again. But the point of those, and again, folks, when we speak um, about our athletes, in the case of Grenada, it's not only track and field, because whether they're in football, whether in basketball, volleyball, they fall into the same category, right? That gap, from secondary school, and as you see in a situation there where the class one, for example, because I know some people are saying that whether or not we should try to adopt the Jamaican model, in terms, because the class one, for example, are those who are 17, 18, 19. I think yeah, 17, 18, 19, right? And that is normally where in the Grenada context, they are into the T.A. Marshall Community College. So whether or not in the discussion whether or not TAM-CC should be part of it, do you think, therefore, that if that is not the case, then schools should probably consider sixth forms, for example? What do you think, or what some of the thought pattern you believe we should take into solving that problem?
Well, in our situation, having a 6 and 7 form, it probably might take a longer time to put into play. I would say the issue that we're having is the exposure to different meats. That is our problem.
Mhm.
All right. That is where the athletes who would have moved on from secondary school, into the tertiary level, they don't have that exposure again for continuing into other meets. So I think it's more important to have additional meets for those athletes. All right. And ensuring that they continue the training, and over a period of time, I definitely believe that we're able to see some improvement in their times as time goes on.
As time goes by. All right, let me see. Hazel, are you there now? Yeah, I think she. Yeah, Hazel, I saw you. No, we're having some problem. Oh, she's here, but somehow I'm not hearing you, Hazelland. We're seeing you. Glad to see you, but somehow we're not hearing you. I don't know what is happening with your mic. I know there's so much excitement for what you are about. Well, I mean, I think my little darling is running today. Christina is running today, so that's. I don't know if because Hazel is so excited that somehow she's not getting the audio, but we can see in the background that nice weather it appears as well, and Christina is doing some running today, so that's why Hazel is out there. So once you get that audio fixed in terms, because we've seen you, Hazel, Claire, nice photo, nice video. Somehow we're just not hearing you, and we want to hear you, Hazel. All right, so let's see if we can fix that, and you'll get back to us, and and we'll go with it. Yeah. So yeah. So Quincy, I'm back with you now. I think we lost Kevin for a while, but the let me see. Right. So not many people would agree with some of those things because for some reason there are those who let me hear Kevin's Kevin, are you there? Let me hear your views on that issue itself, in the whole issue of, well, whether it's sixth forms, whether it's TAM CC, whatever, because I know when we discussed that some weeks ago, you folks were basically typing and sending your comments, but I want to hear from you now, Kevin.
Advantages and disadvantages. I
Yeah.
remember one of the persons who commented on the whole topic, that's Pastor Showen Merriman.
Right. Yeah.
He said that it definitely affects your eligibility because TAMCC is a junior college. So every year that you are at TAMCC, you basically have to give it back if you go to the United States. So that's something athletes have to bear in mind, which I guess I was not totally aware of, and a lot of people were not totally aware of. I think even Aline Francique lost a year of eligibility.
But he was at the National College at the time, right? Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that definitely affected him a little bit because he couldn't compete in his last Indo season or something like that for LSU. So it's something that we have to think about, at least need to think about. But should we have a catchment for athletes who are young? For example, we know a lot of the PBC athletes, they finish school, some of them even at 15 years old still, because they come from the private schools and they go into secondary school a little early. What do they do then? So I still think that we could involve the TAMCC students in the intercall, providing that they are still within the character age group, because they're young, and the system in Grenada, we lack meets. Is one of the biggest problems I think we have. It's been around for so long. I'm surprised that no one has really challenged, the way we do things. We just don't have enough meets on the island, and we have athletes suffering from a lack of competition. I was speaking to one of our character athletes online, and he made it to the character games. He ran national championships. He had to wait a month to run at Carifta, and he was rusty. His coach tried his best to see if he could get him to go to Trinidad and to raise funds. That didn't work out because there was no meets in Grenada. And I'm scratching my head. I'm like, this is what athletes suffer with, the unavailability of meets. If you compare them to athletes in Grenada, I mean, in Jamaica, they started running in January. Every weekend, there's a meet for schools to choose from in Jamaica.
So you think Kevin and then Quincy as well, that what you raising there, Kevin, could be a reason why we are the athletes in Grenada are at a disadvantage when coaches look at even though the Grenadian may have a better performance in the Carifta, they look at consistency and all the other things.
That is
and that could be one of the reasons.
That is one of the big reasons why, one, we don't get the best performance from our athletes because they don't get enough runs in their legs. We are basically asking athletes to train all year to run 3 and 4 times for the season. This is ridiculous, Michael. You know what I'm saying? This is ridiculous. Every meet doesn't have to happen at the national stadium.
Right,
we are blessed with beautiful grounds all over Grenada. We should at least every couple of weeks in Grenada there should be a GAA, Grenada Athletics Association sanctioned meet where athletes can compete, where coaches, clubs, and school teams get a chance to run their relay teams, get a chance to get these races in. And by the time Intercor come around, athletes can fine-tune their craft, run better PRs. You know what I'm saying? And then when we get down to the end of the season, like to Whitsun ties and this time in May and June and this kind of times, it should be the icing on the cake.
Quincy?
Yes, I agree. I share that same sentiment as well.
Let me see.
Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Hazel. We are hearing you. That's
I'm
good to hear
sorry.
from. Yes, that's all right. Well, we expected that. So tell me, Hazel, and some points that were raised by both Quincy and Kevin regarding what could be the disparity, right, of our athletes compared to those of the other islands. What's the disparity for someone like you who went through the system? What would you identify as the disparity?
So I think there are a lot of pieces that we need to work on, and I think I talked about this before. We have to be more systematic. We have a lot of athletes all over the United States, everywhere, running, doing things, and we kind of don't have a system in place that really tracks athletes, what they're doing, where they're at. I think if we become a little bit more systematic in understanding that, in order to really support, to understand what's going on with our athletes, we need to have a system in place for that. Once this is in place and we're able to really see who are our top athletes, whether it's in the 100, 200, 400, then we're able to put methods in place that can say, okay, how do we monitor their progress? How do we support them? How do we make sure that everything that is needed for them to be the best that they can is given to them? And I know Mike Batiste does a really great job of updating, and he probably know all the athletes, all the times, everything that they're doing. But that needs to be transformed into an actual system. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces for me. I believe that's missing because it's really hard to keep up to know where our athletes are and what exactly are they doing. Other countries have systems in place that help with that. So they're able to really do more than what we are currently doing.
Okay, so Quincy, I haven't heard from you, but someone who has also gone through the system, and you have had the experience where you were telling me about speaking to coaches regarding getting Grenadians into the college system, but a concern for them is consistency as well, eh?
Yes, consistency and timing, because the faster you run, the better your chances of getting a full scholarship from a school in the US. And what we've noticed is that a lot of the coaches in the US, they tend to aim for athletes that are running like 46, 45 seconds. Maybe they might gamble with a 47 seconds runner. And those that are probably running slower, they might take a chance and maybe give you a partial scholarship. So that's where finances and stuff comes into play. But then again, majority of those athletes that would have probably finished their secondary school term, I mean, they're not fully mature enough. They haven't really fine-tuned their craft as yet. So there's this extra time that they need to, fine-tune their craft, run faster. I don't think that that opportunity is really given to our athletes here in Grenada. So hence the reason why we need to find means and ways of trying to get more competition for our athletes in Grenada. And I think that is one of the best ways of addressing that issue.
Um,
Go
but
ahead, Kevin.
yeah, but I also think where we are failing is in, I think our secondary school system is basically has fallen flat. Since 2019 when they had the strike and there was no intercall, and then we went into the pandemic in 2020, what you realize is that there was basically so many schools without a coach and training programs. And you know what I'm saying? If you look back 10, 15 years ago, we had more schools invested in track and field training. You had the St. Davis squads were doing better than they're doing today. SAS was doing better than they're doing today. St. Joseph's Convent, St. Andrews, McDonald College. That's not happening today. You look at Intercall and you can tell that girls are not even showing up to training. You know what I'm saying? You could count the amount of girls on one hand who you could basically tell who's working with a coach somewhere around the island. So I'm encouraging the association to sit with the Grenada Union of Teachers, and come together to formulate a plan where we have coaches at every secondary school and we encourage these coaches to build a program. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated. You get a coach, you get an assistant coach, and they work with pride to win a championship. That's basically the blueprint of the Jamaican success. The association doesn't micromanage, track and field at the high school level in Jamaica. If you notice, the schools run their track and field. Jamaica College, Kingston College, Edwin Allen, they run their track and field. And when you look at where the magic happens, I can't even believe it. I saw a program, Edwin Allen basically has like a 300-meter track. It's not even leveled. When I look at Lassa Jess, I was like, man, if they had Lassa Jess, they would probably be breaking world record. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the majority of them is you run on grass, eh?
Exactly. 95% of these schools, they train on grass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they are so committed. So I'm like, Grenada doesn't have an excuse. So the association needs to hear this. I hope Mr. Conrad Francis and all the guys are hearing this. Get the coaches into the school. Let's have a drive to get coaches trained. They're going to work alongside the seasoned coaches in Grenada. Send them out to the schools. Hire them, and get the ball rolling.
Here's a lot. I know that. Well, you participated in I should say, because you were part of it in this the session we had about 2 weeks ago, and I think some of those issues were raised with Coach Johnson, right, and things like that. So, and you have a passion, and I shouldn't assume, I should say, part of your commission has to do with the whole aspect of education and, to an extent, trying to get not just the athletes but coaches as well are more in tune, more involved in what's happening around the sport in particular. Kevin raised some points there. Give me your take on it.
So with the Athletes Commission, it is part of education. We just had our sports nutrition training this morning, workshop this morning, we had people from all over the Caribbean island, coaches, parents, and everyone. And going back to Kevin on getting the coaches involved, again, I'm going to tell you guys this. It comes with a system, right? So we need to become systematic because coaches out there are doing the best that they can, but there needs to be a collaboration that's between everyone. Not everybody just doing things on the side and not knowing like what's really going on. So until we have a systematic system to where we are not just saying let's put them into schools and coach, but more so what exactly are the needs for each school? What exactly are the needs for the athletes in those schools? And also programs that are in place to train. Because there are some programs, we have coaches that are going through some programs, but how can that become more into different parts of Grenada to make sure that we have consistency, not just in St. David's or in GBSS, but also in different places as well. So we need to make sure we becoming systematic, and it's not about like one parish or another parish, because at the end of the day, they're running for Grenada. So we need to make sure that the needs in each parish or each school is being met first in order to make that happen.
All right. The Kim Fullerton is saying in the comments, he's saying not proper structure, well, probably no proper structure for developing, not enough track meets, no real specialization and periodization in training, similar to what you were saying, Kevin. And then he says also cultural bias in Grenada over work ethic and development. Also the myth that sports affect academics. And he concludes by saying proper club structure is the answer. But just getting back to that whole aspect of the myth that sports affect academics. And you know, we have been hearing that from time and time again that, you know, they actually principals and teachers that will boldly speak about, you know, their students' involvement in sports affecting their academics.
Well,
You know,
well, Michael, well, as an old boy of the GBSS, you would know Mr. Ashby always said that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So Mr. Ashby was always a strong supporter of the marriage between academics and sports. He always thought that that was what would make the most well-rounded student. And Grenada has people who have proven that. You have people like Akima Paul Lambert. You have even current athlete right now, Chefonia Houston, who's attempting 14 subjects right now. She has led her Anglican High School classes from the start. She's always been the top student, and she's been the top athlete in the country. So it's proven that once you link sports with academic, it makes you a disciplined individual, and the NCAA will tell you that athletes make some of the best employees after they leave school. It is proven that they're just great people because of the lessons learned by working hard.
Well, even Enel Saint Bernard, a basketballer who just out in college now, and from all reports, he's doing pretty well, not just as a basketballer, but also in his academics as well.
Exactly.
And as you say, most times being involved in sports, and the discipline that involves helps the student. Yeah.
And Michael, honestly, that is something that people should not even say, because if we're teaching student athletes how to balance academics and sports, it's very easy. We all did it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And it keeps young men in particular away from the streets. You don't have time to be outside, but chilling on the block doing the wrong things when you're tired from training and you gotta go home and then pick up a book later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So certainly, I assume Kevin, Quincy. Sorry, I heard you laughing in the background. You agree with that, right?
Yes, I certainly agree. Kirani James is a perfect example.
Exactly. Him again.
Right, student athlete. Being able to balance his academics
Jackie and Brain, all
the sport.
Yeah. Guys and lady, I want to get your comment on that, and we'll just go around the table now. It has to do with the whole issue, and Kim Fullerton mentioned it about club structure. Yes, we have some. Well, Trailblazer, for example, in St. David's, Trailblazers. We have quite a few in the St. George's area. We had Speed Zone before, but I think Quincy, you might probably talk a little more about the whole setup now with what has become of Speed Zone, etc. But we have not seen, for example, a parish like St. Andrew, where we do have strong athletes, strong sports, a strong sporting culture, I should say, a lack of athletic clubs. Yes, we do have, I think, what ACEs, and basically more around the school system. St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, Grenville Secondary School, and to an extent, the convent in Grenville. But do you think that we need more clubs, and in addition to that, a proper club structure come with those formation of the clubs around the island? Starting with you, Quincy.
Yes, I certainly do believe that the inclusion of additional clubs can assist in some areas. However, I've noticed that there's a lot of schools that operate as clubs, right? So I mean, like for example, McDonald College, when they have relay meets, national champs, etc., they represent the school instead of having a club within the community. But
do you think the clubs with clubs they will assist the school or vice versa? I mean,
well, during my time with Speed Zone, we had a lot of conflict with neighboring institutions. I'm not going to call any name, but yeah, there have been a lot of disputes with the athletes, among the athletes, or for the athletes, I would say, with the schools and members within the club, and who they should run for, etc. And we sort of left that decision for the athlete and the parents, to make that decision. But there are times when we told them, like, we think it's our responsibility, because we're the one that's training you, right? The school is not giving any inputs. They're not the ones who, writing your training or, assisting you in any way, apart from, doing your schoolwork. But we believe that the athlete should be representing the club. And but no, I haven't really been hearing much of that happening anymore. Speed Zone is not fully functional in St. John's as before, but I'm not too sure if the same is happening in St. George's area, where there is a multitude of different clubs and also schools. So I'm not familiar what is happening at the moment.
I wonder if Kevin has anything to add to that.
All right, first of all, let me just say, no, the school system, as you know, has fallen flat, unfortunately. And I do believe that for school age athletes, the best system is the school system. I wish that the club coaches would have been working under a school. If they were able to nurture a school and still have their clubs, that would have been the best case scenario, providing that the clubs would have probably had more senior athletes. But in our case, that's not what's happening. The clubs have kept track and field alive in Grenada over the last few years. Without the clubs, where would we have been? Because the school has fallen flat. The MVPs and South City Rising Stars, if you look at it, the St. Davis Trailblazers, they are the ones who have been following our character teams. Without them, we would not have had a character team. So we have to strike a balance somewhere. In a perfect world, the clubs will have more of the older athletes, the senior athletes, and the schools will take the helm in really training, the younger athletes, the 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. But that's not happening right now.
So before I go on to Hazel, because I know Hazel, I know you're scratching to say something, but but they and Kevin, just for clarity, in terms of when you say the system, you're talking about the structure in terms of this sports because we know.
The structure in Grenada right now is just kind of broken, and the clubs, the clubs, they're only doing what they're doing out of necessity, because if they don't train these kids, no one is doing it. The schools are not doing it, and what Quincy just said, that whole issue where the schools now want the kids to run for them, it's kind of unfair, because the clubs are training them, and then the schools want them to run for them in the end, and then you have a situation where there's just a handful of missing Grenada. So it's like, if they only run for the clubs, then the school is not going to even get representation. So then we have a problem again. So you see how it's all messed up. So we really have to go back to the drawing board and change things. I think all of the club coaches should be hired by schools, and let's make this thing
to another
big.
level. Yeah.
All right. Hazel, I see you shaking your head. Let me hear you.
Well, I agree, because I right. To be honest, if we're going to continue to do well, and I'm hoping with the sports council policy and all the things that we are working on could help this, right? But if we can get those club coaches into the schools, then it would help. It would help solve the problem of the school knowing who their athletes, what's going on. Everyone is consistent.
Exactly.
Everyone is on the same page. Again, we cannot continue to do stuff in isolation. Even though Jamaica and other countries have it to where each school does their own thing, they have systems in place. You can tell, okay, how many we have in Calabar, how many we have in this school.
Yeah.
But we have to have like a overall systematic system outside of just the individual pieces. Because of course, each coach is working with a specific school or a club. But at the end of the day, if you're thinking about preparing for character, preparing for those big meets, we have to have a body that's overseeing everything pertaining to every school, every club, every coach, everything. So we are all on the same page. We cannot continue to work on islands. Islands are good for when we have to do intercall and different things, but we need to have a country when we need to.
Understood. Yep.
And Michael, just to let you know, I'm sorry, my daughter just PR. She ran 101.48.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Good.
Wow. Congrats, Christina. Congrats. And Christina will be upset if you don't mention that to me, right?
That I'm confused. Wanted me to let you know immediately.
Yeah, so I hope I'll have my
coaches
video
are you?
later on.
She's 13, and she says she will be better than me. So
when it comes to the coaching is between Hazel and Huzzy, right? I know when Huzzy is not there, Hazel has to do the coaching, and and vice versa. So Hazel is speaking to me today, so I believe her dad is doing the coaching now.
Dad is doing the coaching. I'm the assistant watching.
What's the target for the season?
I didn't hear you.
What's her target for the season? Like, you trying to get her to break a minute?
No, she's 13. I think she has enough time. We just want her to get used to running like the AAU. She's not part of a club. We want to make sure that we monitor that as well, because if you're not careful, the burnout could happen, and that speaks to even our own clubs and how we train, how we make sure that we're at longevity. Because at the end of the day, if athletes are to get scholarships and they're to move on, we have to monitor that. It's not just running, just to win or to give points. So those are also concerns when you think about clubs and you think about how are we preparing our athletes, not just for intercall or character, but down the line.
That's good. Well, I think she's in safe hands.
Yeah. Well, and both Kevin and Quincy, thanks for asking, because I think I'll share with you that the presentation that Hazel and a couple of us attended, a virtual presentation by Coach Johnson, right? And he gave quite a bit. If you listen to that, you will just put the whole situation of Grenada into context, and that to me will shed a lot of light on that. Let me just get some comments from you folks, because the whole issue of the clubs thing, coming up, does anyone has an update on where they are with the national sports policy? This will take care of many of the issues we are presently confronting. In fact, they are, I think, with by next week they will be going into the parish sports council. Some of the candidates for the parish sports council already advertising, they campaigning, things like that. So once the parish sports council and the national sports council we get past that stage, I think the whole issue of the sports policy will kick in. Karen say Kevin is absolutely right, and I think it has to do a lot with the clubs and all these sort of things. Kim is saying if we have a properly organized club structure, then each club can host meets, thereby creating more competition and better development. The Olympic Association has grant monies that can be accessed for that. Agree with Hazel that clubs must fall under one body, and I assume because everybody is all over the place, that may be one of the reasons why we have those things. Mike is saying putting all the club athletes into schools can have a drawback for some of the athletes. School administration can pressure coaches not to work with athletes from certain schools and make requests for athletes from opposing schools to throw events, etc. Very distasteful, but it happens, and it's something that needs to be considered. And that's why the structures, Mike, that's why we keep saying, if there are structures in place, that may probably alleviate some of the problems. Let's take another comment. Roger Duncan is saying, everyone is operating in silos, and rightfully so, because there isn't clear collective objectives. This makes us territorial. Let's work backwards, but without clearly defined futuristic outcomes. All we are doing is just having fun. So certainly, and I think that is what I'm hearing from you, Quincy, from Kevin, and from Hazeland. We need to be talking, and we need to be talking on the same page. So all the people involved, some way or the other, should be talking. There should be the conversation, the communicating, and ultimately we'll be able to alleviate some of these problems. But in going forward, folks, what are you hoping? What do you think? By the way, in terms of the season for our track and field athletes, it's basically, except for the relays, we have the relays, and I think Track Blazers, I think, have their meet and at last address, and then we have Whitsuntide. In terms of get specifically for our local athletes, our school age athletes, right? The season is basically done for them. Over. However, over. What are you hoping in going forward in 2025 you would like to see? What are some of the initiatives, whatever it is, you would like to see in 2025 for our young, budding potential athletes?
I would love to see more meets. We definitely need to have more meets, and if it's an issue of funding, then they need to start now, from like January 15th, all the way up to Carifta, just before Intercall. There should be a meet every other week on the island. Like I said, it always have to
just hold on it. But Kev, and that's why everybody they need to be talking, because I think the Athletics Association have their mini meets, right?
Yeah, but
couple.
Yeah, sometimes I think like the mini meets is just not enough. We need because I follow the Jamaican season, and they have meets. It comes across on YouTube Live, and all the schools come out, and the supporters come out, and it's just live and it's nice, So
and it's organized
meets. Organized meets 1 day. Some of them is 2 days, but most of it is just 1 day, and the schools come out and you see the progression of the athletes, and you just see how they lower their times every week or every other week, and it's so amazing, and I'm like, we are missing this. This is what we are missing in Grenada. The athletes don't get enough running under their legs, and I really, really, really wish even if they could just add 4 more meets between January, February, March, April, 4 more meets, and then you have your national junior championships, you have Intercall, and then who makes the Carifta team? We'll be okay.
Because and even for the schools, before you come in, Quincy and Hazel, athletes don't really have much apart from, yes, the mini meets that the GAA will have for their preparation for even their track and field season. So athletes have what they call the heats. Let's say that, they go and, whether it's standing or whatever, and they throw or they run the heats and things. And then they compete on sports day. And then from sports day to intercall,
Yep, that's it.
And so that's why I'm not even certain whether or not coaches do have a program as to how the athletes will peak or when they will peak, because there isn't much, action for them. Quincy?
Yes, I was actually just about to mention that there should be some form of shift in the coaches' training schedule, because normally some clubs, programs, school programs, they would start around September when school starts. All right. And September, I mean, it is not, you don't get sufficient time really to fine tune your skill sets to get ready for intercall or the major meets. So probably some of the coaches may have to start their training a bit earlier, to address that. But another issue though with the meets, are they really consistent? Because yes, we may say, okay, the GAA may have meets around November, but do they have them every year? Do they have many mini meets this year? How many mini meets did they have this year? All right. We talk about really meet. Did we have really meet this year? I don't think so.
Nope.
So again, we have to be very consistent with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see Brendan Joseph is saying, yes, the mini meets are definitely not enough, because most of the mini meets they're having very poor representation among the clubs and schools. The mini meets have not been taken seriously as competition in Grenada. So it need to be a sort of restructuring in terms of the mini meets, he's saying. Hazel?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I remember when we were in school, we had a lot of meets to help us prepare. So again, that goes back to having a structure. Like we can have a list of competition that we're working on now for next year, for the upcoming season, and everybody knows, okay, these are the meets. But again, if we don't go back into putting those structures in place, it just seems like isolation. And I think Kevin or Quincy brought up our young ladies who are not as involved in track and field like we used to when I was back in school. And I think it's important for us to have an understanding as to why we have less in interested in sports or interested in track and field, and how can we build that? Because at the end of the day, if we're going to think about succession planning and having athletes to compete at the highest level, those are things that we need to understand the why. What are the root causes? So we can figure out what we need to do to get them more involved and more interested.
Exactly.
Folks, I over the past 2 days, Thursday and Friday in particular, I looked at the CARICOM conference on cricket, cricket conference. Let's call it CARICOM Cricket Conference. And I realized that, they're making a concerted effort to get cricket back on the agenda, on the lips of Caribbean people, blah, 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 and thing. They considered, cricket rich legacy and rich history of Caribbean people. And I thought to myself as well, but track and field also to an extent, because since from the 30s and the 40s, we had, Caribbean athletes that were winning, Olympic medals and things like that. So, and I mean, even after Bolt, we still have athletes from the Caribbean who are dominant on the world stage. Do you think that it's time that, the people involved in track and field, in athletics, especially in the Caribbean, start talking, about how, track and field in particular, because, I have seen we have lost a lot of track and field athletes to other sports, and while, yes, when you look at it in terms of opportunities academic opportunities, I think track and field stands out because you will probably get more scholarships going towards track and field and probably the other sports like volleyball and basketball, etc., etc. But from you folks, do you think that it's time, even if it means in Grenada, they start talking about, all that we're speaking about there, bringing all the stakeholders together and speaking about the sports, speaking about track and field, what it is, as probably headed by the Grenada Athletics Association. What is the 5-year, 10-year plan of the Athletics Association? What they're hoping to achieve, and things like that. So, Quincy, starting with you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, it comes back again to structure, the willingness of the members within the association to actually get the job done. Far too often, it don't seem like the interest or the drive is there. Sometimes we might start, 1 minute we pick it up, we have this big boost of energy, and then all of a sudden, everything just sort of died down over the next year or two, and then nobody talks about it again after that. So again, I mean, I'm really hoping that these sort of structures that we hope to see put in place, that the persons that are involved, that they do take the job seriously and ensuring that things are get done properly.
All right, Kevin.
Oh yes. First of all, I would love to see some new initiatives taken by the association. I know it's been the same people basically for a lot of years, and I'm not advocating for any changes in positions. I'm not going to be that bold, but what I would advocate for is some fresh ideas. So I'm hoping that they'll be willing to listen more and be willing to try new things. And it's not a rocket science. And if it's an issue of finance that prevents them from trying new things, then they need to start getting a bit more mobilized, and, probably sitting with the Minister of Education, I mean, sports, sorry, and, and probably meeting with the private sector and see if they could get some funds to ensure that some of the programs, could be implemented and we could get off the ground and, really start making a move in the right direction. But it starts with the policies, as Hazel and Regis Buckles was saying, because we need to organize and know where we're heading, and make the plans and make sure we all under one body and we can work together for the greater good of the sport.
Yeah. Hazel?
Yes, and strategic plans are very, very helpful. Tiering our athletes by group, with our elite, our juniors, and knowing exactly what the targets are for each group. Because again, it's not going to be the same for all of them. So having a strategic plan for in place that tier our athletes by groups and have measures in place for what do we expect in the next 6 months? What do we want to do in the next 10 months, a year? How do we start preparing now for Carifta Games, even Commonwealth, World Champs, uh, Olympics, because those are not things you do the year off. So I think if we can get better in strategically mapping that out and everybody knows what's going on, then that will help us a lot in terms of keeping everybody accountable and collaborating. I think that would help.
All right. So before we wrap up, I just want to read some comments that came in so that you all can hear, and then just some final words from you. Richard Holston is saying, I think that's Mona. Hi, Mona, good afternoon. I think one of the problems could be finances. And another thing is that the Athletics Association need to incorporate the private sector for financial support. So certainly in terms of the getting the stakeholders on board. Jason Skeet says, until we, 1, have an avenue for athletes after the secondary school level, 2, seek valuable opportunities for them outside of Grenada to participate and develop their person and skills, and 3, create opportunities for athletes exchange, we'll be moving in a circle and not upwards. Roger says, suggestion. I like the politicians. Let's do some town hall meetings island-wide. Let's talk. You'll be amazed if the inputs of all stakeholders, parents, athletes, fans, administrators, coaches, financiers, community supporters, including the snow cone vendor. That's what we're saying. They need to reach out and have the you know, well, and it's one thing, you know, sitting down and talking, but the action is the next step. We need a proper program in place together with financial support in order to keep them consistent with the development for the future to be competitive. Mike, but he says, before national champs in 2024, there was one mini meet scheduled by the Grenada Athletic Association. The sole mini meet in December was well attended and was the other two in November. And Jason says, sometimes fresh ideas require fresh personalities and fresh thinking. So maybe we need to be fresh. I think Kevin didn't want to comment. Kevin was trying to avoid that. So Jason is telling you that, you know, if you need fresh ideas, you might need fresh personalities.
That man is a bad man. He's still coaching you.
Karen Matisse. But no, you were trying to be diplomatic. You know? Yeah. Karen Batiste, excellent
Jason
idea.
more brave than me.
Well, yeah, he backed his brother. Let's all come to the table and engage each other. That was a scenario presented before by government, and we are still waiting. Roger says, sell. Grenadians are passionate about sports, undoubtedly, but we do not know the state of the union. Help us make it make sense. All the things that have been said here, the folks in the GAA is fully aware of it. My concern is what's causing them not to do it. Yeah. Folks, so time for you to wrap up, starting with Quincy.
Yes, well, I mean, I do hope the people in authority, you know, really take this thing serious. I mean, far too many times we see too many athletes fall through the cracks. We see how talented they are, and because of the you know, having the appropriate support, because of they don't have that proper backing. Unfortunately, they still themselves like, why should I continue track and field? You know, why should I remain in a sport where there is not much happening, right? I'm not seeing anything that is going on, so why should I remain? And I really hope that the association can address those issues, and don't be scared to reach out. You know, I'm here, I'm willing to assist wherever is necessary. And I believe that once we make those proper changes and have proper structures in place, I believe that we can certainly address the track and field deficiencies that we have on island. So yeah.
All right. Kevin?
All right. I'm gonna leave by making a recommendation. It just came to mind. I recommend that we definitely start a coaches association, and all the coaches work together under one body, and we make sure that is broadened, whereby coaches acquire skills necessary, and they teach other new coaches, so that we have the amount of coaches we need on island, so that there are no shortages, so that whenever the program is implemented, it is able to run fluently, so that we can affect the positive change island wide, and so that even in Cuthbert Peters Park, St. Rose Modern Secondary, Shaper School, there should be a program there in the afternoon. Alson George Park, St. Mark's Secondary should be training on the afternoon. Prospect Park, SAS, Grenville Secondary, all the schools up there should be training on the afternoon. All the parks around the nation should have kids training and working hard on the afternoon under the tutelage of experienced coaches. That would be my dream. And I think it would be a step in the right direction. I hope someone's listening. Thanks.
Not a bad dream.
Not a bad dream at all.
Hazel?
Yeah, so I would just like to say, I mean, we can only get better before we get worse. That's my hope. And if we just utilize the talent that we have and have everyone just work together, there are so many people who would like to be involved and who would like to help. I am a person who don't believe let's complain without having solutions, and we all have a lot of solutions. But I think in order for anything to work or to get better, it has to be togetherness, collaboration, and not isolation conversation with everyone just doing something on the side.
Yeah, well, certainly, folks. I want to thank you very much, Quincy, Kevin, and Hazeln. Thank you for sharing your views, and hopefully, sometime we may have a proper sit down. We may have to have our own stakeholders meeting, something where because as you say, and I think you basically you're all on the same wavelength that we're talking about. People need to come together, collate ideas, because even as an association, you might be doing the same thing over and over and over. There might be people who are willing to provide some suggestions and ideas that you can even adopt, tweak, whatever it is like that. So I don't think it's wrong or it's bad in terms of soliciting ideas and feedback and comments from the public, right? And I think in many cases, I think people, your fans, whoever it is, even the parents, they mean well, okay? And sometimes it's just a matter they just want to assist or they want to see the better, right? It's not so much about criticizing, but they just want to see the best. And I think sometimes we kind of ostracize them and put them aside and believe that we, meaning the association, we have all the answers and all the solutions for all the problems, right? So, folks, I want to thank you for being part of the program. Hazel, my regards as well to Christina, and I know we keep working on that time, keep working on that time. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you,
All right.
Quincy. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, it
Thank
was
you.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Right.
All
Okay.
right, thank
So
you.
you're welcome. Folks, we had Quincy Jones, we also had Kevin Braffett, and we had Hazeln as our guest, and providing quite a bit for us. And and these, by the way, these are folks I can tell you, and probably specifically chosen, because if you follow both Kevin and Quincy and Hazel, you will understand the passion I'm talking about. They don't, these things don't really miss them. Not just the program, but the performances of our athletes at home and abroad don't really miss them. And that is something I think, and that's why I asked the question about whether or not Grenadians are passionate about sports or just at the moment. There are few. They are the exception, because long after the character games, long after the intercall, these are folks who still seek information about our sportsmen and sportswomen, right? They follow the information about our sportsmen and sportswomen, right? These are the people. And there are a lot of folks who make a lot of noise. And that's why sometimes I sort of ignore certain people, because I know it's just for the moment, right? They hype up about for the moment. I recall for weeks, even probably a few months before, information being circulated about tickets for, let's say, character games. And don't you know, the day before Carifta, that was the Good Friday, I saw someone sending me a message asking me about tickets for the character games. And I know, and I can confirm that the person had the information about the character games in terms of tickets. And I'm just trying to explain to you sometimes that there are people who, just for the moment, showing a lot of about they're so passionate and they're so this and they support and 473 and blah, 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 and all sort of thing. Listen, man. Yeah, folks, I just want to share with you some information regarding the Kellen Batiste Foundation. They have a basketball development camp coming up in Grenada at the end of next month, the 29th and the 31st. It will be at the Grandans basketball, the newly renovated Grandans basketball complex. And we have some coaches there. Coach Gary Maitland is one who will be there. Ethan Thomas is a professional basketballer, Grenada. Coach Aaron Williams will also be there. Malcolm Thomas, and also Enel Sinbadad. That's one of the young basketballers who is doing very good on the college season, the college circuit, I should say, in the United States. So just remember the date, May 29th to the 31st. It's a development camp, and it's organized by the Kellen Batiste Foundation, and they're dealing with basketball. Not, by the way, the Kellen Batiste Foundation, even though it's in memory of Kellen Batiste, who was a national footballer, goalkeeper to be precise, they involved in basketball, football, and I'm certain that in other areas as well. Okay, so even though Kellen was a footballer, see, they also involved in other sports besides football, right? So if there's any way you can support for more information, whatever it is like that, so the information is available, the Kellen Batiste Foundation. Thank you very much, Kyron. Folks, let me see if there's some more information available. Let me see. Right, TalkSports. A TalkSports stakeholders meeting, I support 100%. Roger says, congratulations, Hazelin. I certainly it's about Christina. And Jason says, because there are lots of people who are passionate about the sport, willing to help and not being allowed to because of personality beef, sad at the expense of the sport. Where are the timings, heights, and distances of our local athletes for the world to see? Yep, that's another thing. We need to have, the documentation, the statistics, all these sort of things. We have athletes and in general, sportsmen and sportswomen who are doing wonderful things, right? And I'm saying just as how, you will put information, probably except, let's say, for Kirani James, about one of our athletes, performing well, basketballer, footballer, track and field athlete, volleyballer, that won't get the viral attention among Grenadians compared to some probably chopping incident or some, Nancy story, boyfriend, girlfriend, tilly, them kind of things. So, the sort of gossip that you see on social media. Some of people waste a lot of time on these sort of things. These things, they get the attention of our folks more than, the positives of our young people. Seriously. Consider some of what our sportsmen and sportswomen are doing. And I mentioned the name Enel Thomas, for example. Enel St. Bernard, for example, as one. And then we have a multitude of other sportsmen and sportswomen, basketball, volleyball, even table tennis. Let's name it, swimming. Let's name the sporting discipline. That do not have an interest for them compared to some gossip, with some boy and some girl and this kind of thing. So, and that is what I'm talking about when I speak about the passion. I have a passion. A lot of folks are passionate about sports. Passionate about the moment, the moment in sports, not holistically about the development of our sportsmen and sportswomen. Jason, I don't know which comment you think you're referring to. He says that I'm scared to read this comment. I don't know which of the comment, but he says he also played basketball, but his life was football. Yeah, and that's referring to Kyron. I'm sorry, Kyron gave me the information about his brother, Kellon Batiste. Yeah, Kellon was a, national goalkeeper, you know. I'm saying, Mona is saying Kyron was also a national under 50 goalkeeper, which was coached by myself. Mona is saying that. So I don't want to give Kyron too much that he doesn't deserve. I know his brother, Kellon, deserve it. Okay, Jason, it's a bit long, so I see what you're talking about here. Here is a suggestion. Can we ask the GAA to make public again the requirements for serving on the national executive? Then let us give open notice to the public and clubs and business people, all stakeholders who are interested to make themselves available. And then let's allow for people without double hats to serve on the national executive. Example, you cannot hold a strategic position, one, government, and be on the executive that is subjected to the arm of the government. That is subjected to the arm of the government. Yeah, and I think, there have been some questions about that, whether as a permanent secretary, permanent member of the public service, you can hold, something like permanent secretary in the Ministry of Sports and be an executive member of a sporting association thing. That was asked. I don't know the rules and, the rules of the public service when it comes to that, and vice versa in terms of the sporting association. All depends on their, rules of engagement, their constitution, etc., etc. I don't know, so I can't really say whether or not that is, possible. But as for your suggestion, Jason, I don't know when the election is due for the Athletic Association, but if you have interest, or anyone has interest, that is something probably you can pursue. But as Jason is saying, for them to make it public, as some sporting association, not just in terms of council meetings, but they make it public. For example, we were following the Jamaica Cricket Association elections for weeks, the build up to the election, for weeks, because it was in the public domain. Some of these sporting associations, you only get to know when an executive body has been elected, and sometimes among just the group, But as Jason saying, make it public, make it open. Yes, there must be, probably based on the constitution, there must be some level of affiliation, etc. But I don't see it as a problem making it public, because you're serving a national interest, as one will say. So whether it's basketball, athletics, cricket, etc., there's nothing to hide. I mean, make it public, because ultimately you're serving, as we say, the national interest. You still have to come to the public for support, etc., etc. So I think that should be it, Jason. I agree with you, on that, and not just track and field, not just the athletics, whatever sporting association. Kyron says football was my first love, and then basketball, because my favorite was, because basketball was his favorite. Was fortunate to play both in college and was also trained by my brother Kellon. Kelvin says some of these people need to go. I think that's what Kevin didn't want to say, or he was trying to say, but was being very careful. But what Jason said, and now you, Kelvin, is basically reiterating it. Fresh ideas, fresh personalities. Because I'm wondering whether or not the same old will be willing to accept, the fresh ideas that we're talking about, whether they'll be able to navigate, those fresh ideas. They're willing to accommodate these fresh ideas, So sometimes you may just need something fresh perspectives, fresh, as Jason was saying, to use his phrase, fresh personalities, But at the same time, there's a downside to that, Sometimes you don't want to just get rid of the old, bring in the new, and then, the new can't really, handle those things. And that's why I'm saying sometimes about the commitment, because, you know, at the start, people always talk about being committed. You know, it's always interesting to hear at the start of a new executive, the commitment and, you know, how much they want to do and how much blah, blah. And then within sometimes weeks and months, problems, problems, you know. And if there is one thing I would hope in going forward, that when people, I know it's voluntary, right? But when people take on these responsibilities, especially at the national level, it must come with some, well, I don't want, sorry, I almost say consequences, but, you know, level of, you know, the accountability and the transparency and all of that, you know, and not something where you become a member of this national executive and believe that you are protected and believe that no one can touch you and believe that you can do what you want, you know, and there lies the problem, you know. Hopefully things will change. But folks, there's just one thing I want to end on, and I was, as I mentioned, that the CARICOM cricket conference that took place in Trinidad, and I asked myself why Grenada was not sitting around the table with the decision makers or be part of the conversation. You know, why? Mr. Dwayne Gill was there, but he's a director of Cricket West Indies, so take him out of the picture. He's not representing Grenada. Dr. Keith Mitchell was there. Take him out of the picture as well. Why? Because he was specially invited. He's a member of a subcommittee. So he's not really representing Grenada per se. He's, you know, so let's put him on the side. But why it is there was no representation from Grenada at the level of whether it's a ministry or whatever. And from my understanding, the nations within CARICOM, each nation were invited. There was 3 invitations per nation. Yeah, 3 per country within CARICOM. So I saw St. Lucia, I saw Dominica and I saw them because they were asking questions and, you know, and things like that. So, but Grenada, the closest neighbor to Trinidad and Tobago, and we had no official representation, something has to be wrong. And, you know, and mind you, Grenada will be assuming the chairmanship of CARICOM in a month or 2, you know, in June. So the whole issue of the cricket and all the discussions after the post discussion will basically be a Grenada thing for the next few months. Even though it was organized and initiated by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, but he made a reference to some of the things that hopefully will be taking place in Grenada and under the chairmanship of Grenada, right? So it appears that even cricket will be back on the agenda of CARICOM. And we were not around the table, no technocrat, no, you know, no official. So when it comes to the whole issue of Grenada, what will be saying? What we know? You know, was kind of disappointed, you know, and there was a similar thing where when the OECS Youth and Sports Ministers met in St. Lucia recently, there was no representation of Grenada at the highest level. And it was, mind you, it was a ministerial meeting. No representation by Grenada at the highest level. OECS, now CARICOM. Are we serious about sports? Why are we not sitting at the table? Why are we not discussing those issues regarding sports? Are we serious about sports? Folks, that's all for this week. I think I've said enough. Hope to see you and hear from you. Next program, which will be in May. So next month, hopefully. Yes, folks. I look forward to your usual company. Hopefully next week we'll, you know, have something that we can talk a little more on, by the way, and be getting into the height of the track and field season, especially for our elite athletes, and our college athletes are getting into some, competition in earnest, right? Remember that, right? So we'll have a lot to discuss in the next few weeks, as a lead up, by the way, to the Paris Olympic Games, right? Yeah, we have Penn Relays. We have some of our Grenadians who are actually competing at the Penn Relays. So we'll have some certain Kevin and Quincy and myself will have some results and and things regarding performances on the weekend. And then come next weekend, well, it's the World Relays, okay? And as you heard, that that's Grenada will have its on the 20, its character games team at the World Relays. Something I wanted to discuss with those folks, but I'll leave that for after the fact, and hopefully, and we're just hoping that they can give a good performance in the Bahamas, and there's hope that they probably may make the cut and get to Paris, but I'm certain that most fans were looking forward to our best bet in terms of the 4x4, but that hasn't been the case. So we want to wish our athletes who are journeying to Nassau, the Bahamas, for the World Relays all the best, folks. Give it your best, and I'm hoping the best for you. Okay, folks, that's all for this week. Just remember that we'll be following all our athletes for this weekend. Well, starting this weekend, because we do have the Penn Relays. We also have Kirani opening the season in Bermuda. Come tomorrow. Yes, he'll be in Bermuda tomorrow. So yeah, he should be. No, Toro, there isn't any exhibition race in the relays. I think the Athletic Association issued a press release about pre-show. There's no pre-show at the relays. They call it a rapid charge, which is basically an event that will give the athletes an opportunity, who did not qualify, by the way, an opportunity to go on to the next round. That is basically what it is. Yeah, so that is what it is. There's no pre-show or anything like that. So, so that's they going into a section which is actually on Sunday, which is the second day, right? The second day is an opportunity for those teams that did not qualify by virtue of being in the relay. So they were probably invited, etc., and they have an opportunity that they can, qualify to the next round and even qualify to the Olympic Games. That's what it is. Yes, folks. So all the best, and looking forward to your company come next weekend, God's willing, same time. So while I'm here in North Dakota, our start time will be 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is also Eastern Caribbean time. Okay, so until then, I want to wish you all the best, and do have yourself a pleasant weekend.